Hello, and welcome to Decarbonize, the clean energy podcast from Fresh Energy. Fresh Energy is a Minnesota nonprofit working to speed our state's transition to a clean energy economy. My name is Joe Olson. I'm the Communications and Engagement Director here at Fresh Energy and also your host for today. I'm excited to be joined by my colleagues Mario Ojeda and Eric Fowler. Hello.
Good
Hey, Joe.
afternoon.
Thanks for being here. Now, Mari and Eric, you've joined forces this legislative session to advance a bill that would create a first of its kind electric panel upgrade grant program. Say that 5 times fast. Mari is on Fresh Energy's Energy Access and Equity team, and Eric is on the Energy Transition and Public Affairs teams. And this bill is a perfect example of those Fresh Energy program areas melding together. So first, let's set the stage. And I think to do that, we should have a quick primer on building decarbonization in the energy transition. Eric, no big deal. Can you take this question?
Thanks, Joe. So buildings are a major source of carbon pollution, both globally and also in Minnesota. They contribute about 40% of US greenhouse gas emissions. And the comparison here, we often will make to electricity and transportation. So those sectors are getting cleaner. Pollution is decreasing from those sectors, whereas buildings, even though they're a little bit smaller piece of the pie, the emissions are growing still every year. So Fresh Energy is focused on reducing emissions from both new and existing buildings in Minnesota. And one of the ways that we're doing this is by ensuring that our buildings are future-proofed, right? We want them ready for the next generation of clean, efficient electric heating, hot water, and cooking. And in particular, as part of this effort, we have identified electric panel upgrades as a strategic way to speed up that process of home electrification.
And getting an electric panel upgrade can actually prove to be a major financial roadblock, right? Mari, can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, Joe, thanks. So most residents realize that in order to upgrade their electric appliances like dryers and water heaters, etc., they'll need to increase the electrical capacity of their homes to support all electric appliances. So that's potentially paying for an unexpected cost on top of the cost that they've already planned for, which is switching out that appliance. So for example, upgrading to a 200 amp electric panel, which is the standard for full electrification in most of the single family homes, this can cost thousands of dollars. Searching through the numbers and talking to various electrical contractors, we have seen and heard that the average range is about $2,000 to $4,000. And a lot of factors are dependent on that price, including the age of the home. And note that this is just the average range, which doesn't include extreme and costly cases of really old and dangerous panels and wiring. And research organization Pecan Street estimates that about 48 million homes nationwide may require electric panel upgrades to fully electrify. So this means that we need to start finding solutions to address this now.
Yeah, absolutely, Marian. And honestly, my home is one of them. So I'm especially interested in this topic today. So like all of our work at Fresh Energy, I know this initiative had a major equity component. Mari, I know a lot of thought has been put into the access and equity aspects of this bill, but can you explain them a little bit further?
Yes, of course. Like you said, lots of thought has been put into how this bill would play out and how it would affect under-resourced households and households with lower incomes in particular. Paying for electric panel upgrades is an expensive undertaking. And so with this bill, we wanted to ensure that the program is exemplifying equity and it prioritizes benefiting under-resourced households. And so to address that, the program, we designed it to cover the full cost of upgrades for residents with lower incomes first. So this includes people in both single family and multifamily properties. Then it would expand to all Minnesotans in a second round of applications. So we're prioritizing under-resourced households first, but in that latter part of the program, we're expanding it so that all Minnesotans can benefit. And then another aspect of this program I wanted to point out is that it provides upfront funding to under-resourced households. And that's a special note because this is avoiding the common hurdle that's created by rebates and tax credits. And those two options, they're reimbursing the person. So if you don't have the money upfront to cover that full upgrade, you can't benefit from the program. And so we sought to address that problem by including upfront funding for lower income households that can't afford to be reimbursed.
Thanks, Mari. Eric, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of the bill itself.
Definitely. So I guess the place to start would be the program administrator for this grant pilot would be the Department of Commerce. And this is written so that they have flexibility to contract that out to one or more other administrators. We kind of, that's flexible. They can make that decision. An example of someone they might consider, right? What would that look like? Would be a CAP agency. So community action partnerships are local social service organizations that run weatherization programs already, and that's pretty closely related in various ways to this work. And the funding, it can be used to upgrade electric panels in a bunch of different types of buildings. So single family homes, and we explicitly include manufactured homes in that, previously known, or perhaps better known by some folks as mobile homes. And then also multifamily buildings. And Mari kind of touched on this already, but we've envisioned a 2-phase rollout, and the first phase would be open to lower income and under-resourced households or owners of multifamily buildings where at least 66% of the units are households at 60% of the state median income or less. So basically, your building will qualify if a significant majority of folks are under-resourced. And then that phase will last for either a year or until 40% of the program funds have been spent. So again, really focus on eliminating this barrier where it is the biggest barrier. And then after phase 1, phase 2 opens the program up to all residential property owners in Minnesota. So if you're still following, what is that? What is the money, right? What are the amounts?
Yeah, I'm wondering, like, how much money are we talking, Eric?
Right. So the biggest factor here is whether or not you are income qualified. If you are in a single family home, you're going to qualify for up to $10,000. For everyone else, you're still going to get help with the upgrade, but the cap on that is going to be $1,000. And then for multifamily buildings, there's a formula based on the number of units. But the range for an income eligible multifamily building is going to be $10,500 up to $50,000. For a non-income eligible multifamily building, the range is going to be $2,000 to $10,000. And then I think we heard a little bit about 200 amps as a kind of important target. So that's for the single family homes. We're looking to get folks to at least a 200 amp electric panel, because multifamily buildings vary a lot more, right? You could have equipment in the unit on somebody's unit panel, or you could have, you could have it in the basement on something else. So for that, we use a formula by the National Electric Code that calculates what you would need to have a fully electrified building.
Okay, thank you, Eric. And now, I don't think either of you are moonlighting as electricians on the side. So figuring out a lot of these details were probably like pretty challenging, like both coming up with these formulas, but then also terminology even for folks like the three of us who are I don't think we're electricians. So these nuts and
Definitely
bolts
not.
presented. Well, who knows, Mari? Maybe it's going to be like the next big thing.
There you go.
So these presented quite a challenge to figure out. And I know the two of you really leaned on experts and leaders in the space. You did just a ton of research to these groups in labor and beyond to ensure that we got those details right. So Mari, are there any of those partners specifically that you want to call out?
Yes, definitely lots of partners. And Joe, as you said, all types of nuts and bolts. I am totally envisioning like going to a home improvement store and just staring down that one aisle that has all the nuts and bolts and all the fasteners and all the screws. And you're just like, wow, where do I start? Perfect metaphor for this process. So yeah, we had a lot of conversations working to get this right. Lots of meetings, lots of redrafting. We met with union electrical workers, union electrical contractors, non-union electrical contractors, commerce department staff, housing advocates, and more. We also got a lot of good questions and suggestions from House research staff that helped us really refine the program and assist with making the definitions thorough and consistent. And many times there were some conflicting definitions and descriptions that we received, and even ones that we drafted ourselves. Again, yeah, like you said, we're not professionals here, so we definitely needed a lot of that input and advice. And even though it did require a lot of back and forth, it was super beneficial just to get to know the different needs and values that are out there. I feel that those conversations strengthen our understanding of the issue at hand, and that allowed us to really focus even more on procedural and distributional equity to ensure that the program is actually making sense and it is impactful. And so these were, again, super valuable conversation we had, and thank you so much to everyone for taking the time to work with us on it. And I want to give a special shout out to our testifiers for this bill, Mike Robertson from Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity and Jamal Lewis from Rewiring America. And I know that we'll talk more about the testimony later, but they were really true rock stars that day at the hearing. And also thank you to Chris Connery from, excuse me, 100% Campaign for writing a letter of support and tweeting during the hearing as well.
Thank you, Mari. And yeah, tweeting during the hearing, I think I saw a lot of engagement on those posts. So definitely appreciate the issue getting lifted up. So speaking of tweeting, there's a lot of tweeting happening right now at the legislature. So let's focus on where this bill currently is at the Minnesota Legislature. The bill was introduced this session by a bipartisan team, Representative Athena Hollins in the House and Senator Jason Rarick in the Senate. Eric, what else should we know about what's happening at session?
Absolutely. So a lot of this is moving fast, and I definitely want to start with a big shout out and thank you to our authors of this legislation, Rep. Athena Hollins from St. Paul and Senator Jason Rarick of Pine City. They've both been really helpful partners in crafting and supporting the legislation. As a union electrician himself, Senator Rarick, he gets the importance of safe, updated electrical equipment, and he actually shared with us that many of the panel upgrades that he has witnessed were required by an insurance company in order to cover the home, which I think really emphasizes the fact that this is safety policy as much as it is climate policy. And like you, Joe, Representative Hollins shared from her perspective as a homeowner who will be needing a panel upgrade. She shared that in her opening remarks when we were in committee. So that's part of the story too. Updating electric service to older homes is a great way to preserve existing housing stock in the state. So the committee that we're talking about was Representative Jamie Long's Climate and Energy Finance and Policy Committee. So also thank you to Chair Long for hosting this testimony in his committee in the House. And then we of course partnered with Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity and Rewiring America to provide that supporting testimony in the committee, which was on March 22nd.
Thank you, Eric. And now, because the testimony during that hearing was so powerful, we're actually going to play a few audio clips for our listeners. First, you'll hear Mike Robertson, the A Brush with Kindness program manager at Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity.
As our work at Twin Cities Habitat and other developers evolves to include electrification and decarbonization, the bill under consideration is really the right kind of resource at the right time to help us and other housing organizations leverage the value of the solid existing housing stock we have and to pave the way for electrical improvement that not only benefits the environment, but also addresses a major and recurring health and safety issue for the homeowner. I'm going to tell just a brief story about one homeowner of the dozens that I've worked with in the past that have had an issue like this. Patricia is an African-American homeowner who's lived in the North Minneapolis, Jordan neighborhood for over 30 years. Her home is immaculate inside and out, but she contacted us because as an older adult, she needed some accessibility modifications. And she also mentioned that she was having some electrical issues and kept blowing fuses. So when I went out to assess the property, the electrical panel that she had was in fact a box from probably the 1930s that had 4 fuses in it, the old screw-in type fuses. She could not run her refrigerator and any other appliance at the same time in her house. She had to run her toaster, she had to unplug her refrigerator. So it was clear that the circuits in her house were simply overloaded and unsafe. A typical panel upgrade, as folks, previous testifiers have mentioned, to 200 amp service has cost between $2,000 and $3,000 in the past. But in this particular case, because the service was so old, it needed a new mast and it needed a new bypass meter socket. And so that pushed the cost well over $5,000. So we were able to do that work. And not only is Pat's home much safer, but removing the barrier of pre-electrification, she can now more easily take advantage of clean, highly efficient green technologies like rooftop solar, air source heat pumps for heating, cooling, and water heating. These improvements will be good for Pat's monthly expenses, the indoor air quality of her home, and good for the environment. It's in our best interest to ensure that statewide resources available to support homeowners transitioning to the clean energy economy are adequate to meet the need. So grants like the one proposed support that move towards a decarbonized economy, support affordable homeownership, support affordable housing stock, support local trade contractors and housing organizations, and most importantly, support health, safety, and stability of homeowners. Thank you.
Now, Mari, you used to work at Habitat. Is there anything you'd like to say about Mike and Habitat's work in this area and their support of the bill?
Yeah, definitely. First, I just want to say thanks again to Mike for testifying. It was really powerful. So having known Mike for quite some time now, like a handful of years, I'm really inspired by his passion, his determination, and his empathy that he brings to his work. I think you can hear that loud and clear in his testimony. And once you really get to know him, you can tell how purposeful he is when he's building those relationships with people, particularly at Habitat. I saw all the time as he would describe his interactions with homeowners who were struggling to pay for much needed repairs in their homes. Mike's also super engaged in electrification conversations and making sure that our clean energy future is as equitable as possible. So we're really grateful that he shared his story and his experience with the legislators at that committee hearing.
Thank you, Mari. And now we are going to hear from Jamal Lewis, who is the Director of Policy for Rewiring America, a national organization dedicated to economy-wide electrification.
We strongly urge you all to support this bill to provide resources for panel upgrades, a key piece of the building electrification puzzle. To limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, we must eliminate as much of our emissions as possible. Fortunately, 42% of our nation's energy-related emissions can be traced back to the decisions that we make at our kitchen tables. Decisions about the machines that cook our food, drive us to work, and heat and cool our homes. Because of the long lives of these machines, up to 25 years, these decision points do not occur frequently. In fact, these decisions are typically made in emergencies when one of these machines, like a furnace, breaks. It is at this point where we need to electrify. Unfortunately, many homes are equipped with outdated circuit panels that cannot handle the extra electrical load that modern machines require. These circuit panels need to be upgraded. Panel upgrades can be prohibitively expensive, particularly for lower income households. The resources provided by this bill will enable Minnesotans the opportunity to choose clean, efficient electric home appliances when it comes time for replacement. According to the Energy Information Agency, the proportion of all electric homes in every region of the country has steadily increased since 2005. Rooftop solar and electric vehicles have experienced similar increases. The problem is that these technologies have been adopted mostly by wealthier households that have the means not only to purchase the technology, but to also upgrade their electrical panels to handle the additional load. As more consumers leave the gas system, the remaining customers will be stuck holding the bill. And if we're not careful, these remaining customers could be largely low and moderate income households, many of whom are already severely energy cost burdened. This bill is a key step to equitable building electrification, and I urge you to support it. Thank you.
Eric, I think you've been in close communication with the folks over at Rewiring America. Is there anything you'd like to say about Jamal and the organization's work on this bill?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I was really excited that Jamal was willing to join and support this bill, providing testimony. Jamal has a long background of thinking, really critically about not only how do we make the energy transition happen, but how do we do it equitably. There's a report that he helped write in his previous role at the Green and Healthy Homes Initiative, which I would encourage folks, anyone interested in building decarbonization and equity in the energy transition should check out. It's called Leading with Equity and Justice in the Clean Energy Transition, Getting to the Starting Line for Residential Building Electrification. And getting equitably to the starting line is part of what this electric panel program is trying to do. There's a lot of pre-weatherization issues, structural issues, moisture, mold, all types of things that prevent folks from moving their home forward. And so, it was great that he sees the connection and was supportive on this bill.
That is really cool. Thank you, Eric. And I'm really glad we could pull those clips into this conversation. Eric, thank you for working your magic and pulling them out of the hearing recording, which was very long. So thank you for doing that. And before we close, I'm hoping we can do a quick in the moment check-in on what's happening at the legislature right now. Session is over extremely soon, May 17th. What's currently happening with this bill? Eric, if you could fill us in.
Yeah, so it's a little hard to follow if you're just trying to see what's going on the website. Legislative leaders this session are consolidating proposals into omnibus packages. So that means, if you're trying to look up a standalone bill number because you knew that was a proposal, that bill is no longer going to show the real progress of the proposal because things are getting moved around into different bills. So the pilot is included in the House Energy Omnibus Package, which as of this recording on Friday, April 29th, the House has not passed their Energy Omnibus. The Senate did pass the Energy Omnibus, which was rolled up with other omnibus bills. The panel program was not funded in the Senate bill, but the next step is going to be conference committee, which is where members of the two chambers come together. And that's really where, we'll watch for what gets negotiated as part of final bills that are going to get enacted.
All right, thank you, Eric. This is really exciting stuff. And again, I just want to recognize that this is a first of its kind bill. And I want to shout out the two of you, Eric and Mari, for your work spearheading this. And also, of course, the bill authors and committee chairs, as well as the partners, experts, and staff at the revisor's office and testifiers, everyone who played a role in making this happen. But I know I said our last question was the final question before we wrapped up, but I like to have a surprise question. Based on everything we've talked about for the past 20 minutes, what else do you want to mention? Is there anything we missed? Any burning thoughts that you want to share with our listeners? Mari, do you want to go first? If you have anything, of course, no pressure.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I think just reflecting on this process and all the people that we really talked to, I just really wanted to highlight the collaborative nature of this process and of this bill itself. I think that really exemplifies like how collaborative we need to be going forward in other efforts to move our energy transition. And so, we talked about all the different folks that were part of this one process, and it's a electric panel bill program, which is a big deal, but it's, just one piece of the puzzle. And so I just wanted to really uplift everyone that played a role in helping us draft this bill. And I'm really excited moving forward on what else we're going to be up to.
Thanks, Mari. Eric, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I'll just reflect on, kind of exactly what we heard from you and exactly what we heard from Representative Hollins, which is just a lot of folks hearing about this and saying, oh, hey, that's an issue I have, or I just had to upgrade my electric service. Definitely internally at Fresh Energy, I think most staff here are on their own electrification journey, right? As we try to put some of these principles into action in our own lives and in our own homes. And actually an internal discussion is what sparked us researching the concept for this bill, was folks talking internally about what a huge need and what kind of a stumbling block it can be when you realize, oh shoot, no, not only do I need to install a car charger, but before I can even do that, I need to upgrade my electric service. So it's been collaborative, just like Mari said, and also really interesting to see how often the issue resonates with people who we discuss this with.
Absolutely. Well said, Eric. And of course, I think everyone listening knows it's been a really challenging year at the Minnesota Legislature, but we know that updating electric panels in our homes and buildings is just a crucial piece of reducing emissions from our buildings. And while there's no one size fits all out of the box solution to ensure all of our homes are ready for Minnesota's clean energy future, I think this program takes a really significant step forward in preparing them for what's next. So thank you, Eric and Mari, for being with me today.
Thanks for having us, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. It's been great working with you, not only on this podcast, but all of your great support lifting up this and our other programs. So
Thank you, Eric. That's very kind. And thank you, everyone who's listening. I appreciate your time, and I want to invite you to get more involved with Fresh Energy. I mean, if you already subscribe to the podcast, you're probably pretty informed, but there's always more. Join us for an in-person or virtual event. We've got a ton coming up. Speak up for clean energy by participating in an action alert on our website, or make a donation today. We're in the middle of our spring appeal right now. You can do all of this and a ton more on our website. So just go to fresh-energy.org, and there's just tons of resources, blog posts, areas to donate, see what's happening. So join us there and join us for future podcasts too. Thanks everyone for listening.